This is Metal Mike, and in this episode of the 80's Glam Metalcast, we talk to a glam metal pioneer, former Tigertailz vocalist Steevi Jaimz. We talk about his various projects through the years, and he tells his side of the Tigertailz story. Check it out. Steevi, welcome to the 80's Glam Metalcast. How you doing today, my friend?
Hey, Mike, how you doing? I'm okay, yeah, I'm doing okay.
Great.
How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. So, your most recent release is a covers album called Time Machine. What do you want to tell the listeners about that release?
I did it with a guy called Phil Vokins, who I used to be in a band with, pre-Tigertailz, in about a band called Crash KO, with Ace on drums, and I think that was about 82, 83. So I'd known him, I'd known him a long time. He's a great guitar player. And we just got chatting about, covers and stuff. And I had the Living Without You song that I recorded as part of the Private Hell sessions in Sweden. And I basically just had an acoustic version of it. And he came over to my house one day. I played it to him, and he said, "You've got to release it." And I said, "Well, it needs tidying up. It needs this and that." And he said, "Well, let's go in the studio and do it." So we went in the studio, did that version of Living Without You. I don't know if you've heard it or not. But, we did that, and we got talking, and we just thought, bugger it, let's carry on and do some covers. And we basically did a lot of 70s. There's a few 80s songs on there, but most of them are 70s songs that we really liked and bands that influenced us,
Yeah, I was wondering, that's what I was going to ask you. Were these songs that meant a lot to you guys, when you were younger? So they did, yes?
Yes. Absolutely, yeah. You haven't got it there, but in the sleeve notes, it tells a story with every tune that's on there. You know what I mean? Like when I was a kid, we used to have the radio on especially on a Sunday when we were having Sunday dinner. When I was, I can't remember how old I was, 74, so I was about 12, something like that. And a lot of these tunes, especially the Gordon Lightfoot one, I used to hear all the time, and they resonate with me. And Phil was the same with a lot of the tunes that he chose, We did a 50-50 on that.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. I think it sounds great. And if somebody who hasn't heard your voice in a long time, I mean, your voice hasn't missed a beat, man. You still sound spot on like you did in the early days, so.
Oh, thanks, man. Most people disagree. They say I'm useless, but that's another story. But yeah, I mean, how can I explain it? Back in the day, I mean, when we did stuff, it was always rushed all the time. This was more on our time and how we wanted to do it, if that makes any sense.
It does.
And the Cherie Curry thing came about because I jammed on stage with her when she played in London. We did a cover of Kiss, Do You Love Me, I think it was. And that stemmed from there. And we really wanted to do Gypsies, Tramps and Thieves, but we wanted a female vocalist, and I mentioned it to her, and it just went from there, and we ended up doing that, which I think it came out really, really good. It's a shame more people haven't heard the record, to be fair.
Yeah, it was funny. I got to tell you, I'll be honest, a lot of the songs, excuse me, I didn't know. The Cher song I knew, and I think the Gordon Lightfoot song I knew, but a lot of the other ones just missed my radar, probably because, like you said, they're more from the 70s, and I got into music more in the 80s. But my two favorites... Yeah. My two favorites were Look at Last Night and Wild One Forever. Man, when I listen to Look at Last Night, I can't get it out of my head. I'll listen to it, and it'll be stuck in my head for like an hour. And I know that's Slade.
Great. An earworm.
Yes. I did some research. I mean, I know that's Slade. And obviously, I got into a lot of Slade songs through Quiet Riot and different bands that redid their songs. So a lot of them, with them, they maybe weren't huge in America in their time, but other bands brought their music here and got it big.
Yeah, I was going to say Slade and stuff like that. It's mainly an English thing, I suppose, and obviously the Tom Petty wasn't. That was a tune that Phil chose off the first Tom Petty album, which was great. And I wasn't really... I knew the song, but I didn't know it that well. And as soon as he played it to me, it just brought a lot of memories back. And basically, that's what that album does for both me and obviously for Phil. It brought a lot of memories back. And, we just wanted to pay tribute, basically.
Yeah, and what's funny with Tom Petty, I've never really been a Tom Petty fan, and I think I realized why. I respect the man. I never got into his voice. So when you insert your voice on it, I like it. You know what I mean? So.
Well, thank you. That's fair enough, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, I've been a Tom Petty fan for a long, long time. You know, I like most of the stuff he did. And that first album and the second album, You're Gonna Get It as well. I've got both of those. You know, I've had those since I was a kid. So yeah, those songs, like I keep saying, they resonated with us as you know, as individuals and both of us together. So that's basically why we did it. You know what I mean? There's a Steevi Jaimz song on there as well, which is I think I think we did a really great job on it. You know.
Yeah, the whole thing sounds great. So when we talk about, and I've been talking about your voice, I think you have a great voice. I think you have a unique voice. Who are some of your influences from the past that come in to make up who you are? Who do you think?
Well, like I say, I grew up in the 70s, you know, and I'm a massive Black Oak, Arkansas fan, so Jim Dandy was one. I also, you know, I saw Van Halen supporting Black Sabbath, and Dave Lee Roth was like a continuation of Jim Dandy, if you like, you know. They're not great singers, but they're great. They're just great showmen, you know what I mean? That's kind of what I was like. I mean, I'd have loved to have been Robert Plant or Steve Tyler, but I don't have that kind of voice, you know, so... Yeah, it was all about entertainment for me as well. I liked a lot of showmen. Paul Stanley, one of my favourite vocalists from rock bands and stuff. But that's how it kind of went with that.
One thing I like about your voice is you'll have kind of like this main voice that you sing in, right? And then all of a sudden, every once in a while, you'll hit into a screeching voice. And I'm assuming that's maybe something where you would have got from Aerosmith, or like you said, David Lee Roth does that. Is that where that came from?
Absolutely. Sorry, I'm interrupting you all the time. Yeah, absolutely. I was a wannabe Steve Tyler with all that yelping and stuff. Yeah, definitely.
Well, it worked good because a lot of the 80s bands, there's some bands that they screech their vocals completely, right? So.
I was going to say that, you know, that I think that's what set us apart from most of those other ones, because they're, you know, you've got Vince Neil, the guy from Pretty Boy Floyd, long after that. Glam singers, for some reason, they were always really, really high, whiny voices. And, I couldn't get that high anyway, and I never wanted to sing like that, you know what I mean? So that's what I think stood us apart from most of the other glam bands that were around at the time.
All right, so let's get into Tigertailz. So many people love the debut that you are on, Young and Crazy. What are some of your memories from making that album?
Oh, geez, I've got tons, you know. People say I was always pissed and out of control back then, but, you know, when we were doing stuff, I was always sober, so I remember it all. I mean, pre-Young and Crazy, we went in the studio and did an EP, I don't know if you've heard it, Shoot to Kill EP, which has got Shoot to Kill, She's Too Hot, and Living Without You. It came out before the album on our own label. We paid for that, went in the studio and recorded it, and a guy called Tim Lewis was mixing everything, and he was great, you know. And after that, we started building up massive following in this country, huge, you know. Ended up playing 2 nights at the Marquee, and no band was doing that unsigned, nobody, not even the London bands. But we got picked up by MFN, Music for Nations, and we'd already recorded that album, call it Young and Crazy, if you like. We'd already recorded that about a year before. And our manager, he didn't pay the bills and stuff. So when we got signed, Music for Nations paid for the tapes to bring them into the studio, and they put us in a little studio in, I think it was Strawberry Hill in London. And basically we went in there and redid things, you know. I don't think all the songs were re-recorded as such, but we redid a lot of the stuff on that. I redid all the vocals. I had to double track every single one of them, which is the reason why it sounds a bit... I don't know. It's rough and ready. You know what I mean? It's an album it's no frills. It is what it is, and I think because of the way it was, it stood the test of time actually, because it was never overproduced because we didn't have the cash to do it. And you know, people say to me now, they say it still sounds good to this day, which is great, you know. But there was an awful lot of stuff. We always had bad luck along the way, you know. I think they were plagued with bad luck after I left as well. But like I say, the album was done long before it actually was re-recorded for Music for Nations. So, and we had to rush to write 2 new songs. We took off 2 songs. I forget the reason why, but one of them was a song called Now You're On Your Own, and the other song was a song called Just for One Night. And we ended up taking those off for whatever reason. I really can't remember why. And we rush wrote 2 songs, which were Shameless and City Kids, which weren't the greatest of songs, but it was, we were, you know, we were pressed for time with everything we ever did. I mean, we did that album in, I can't remember, it was a couple of weeks, you know, it was really, really rushed. And the funny thing about it is we had a guy called Steevi Jaimz, who's the son of a carry-on guy, Sid James, in this country. You might not know about that. Anyway, he was producing the album, and when we got the mixes out of the studio, they were really bad. So unbeknownst to him, because he had points on the record, we had to go back in the studio and have it all remixed by the engineer. I forget his name. But yeah, we were plagued with problems all the time. They seemed to follow us everywhere we went, you know.
What's your favorite song off that one?
I really like the ballad, Fall in Love Again. I really like that a lot, you know. And probably Shoot to Kill, one of my favourites as well, because it's the harder edge, which is what we were going for.
I'm hooked on Hollywood Killer. I don't know. I love Hollywood Killer.
I like that as well. It's a bit of a riffer, isn't it? But yeah, I wrote that. That's a song about me and Ace, because we were in LA in '85 looking for bands to be in, and that's all about the story that when we were out there, what was going on, you know. But yeah, it's quite a hard hitting song, you know. As is Young and Crazy, the title track.
So I'm going to just put this out here. This is my disclaimer, okay? So I'm a J. Pepper fan. I have no problem with the current version of Tigertailz. He's been good to me. He was my first podcast interview. But you've heard that podcast, and you have some differences of how things went down. So what I'm going to do is I'll give it over to you, and you can say whatever is wrong about what he said, all right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, but well, basically, I heard a bit of that podcast. Him saying that I wrote some of the melodies is utter shit, to be honest. I wrote every song apart from She's Too Hot that went on the album. All the lyrics, all the melodies, all the song titles, title for the album, it's all mine. It all came from my brain, you know. So I don't get why he said I wrote some of the melodies, which it kind of racks me off. There's always been a lot of backbiting from them, you know, considering that they, you know, they gave me the boot. And a lot of the people around that band have really, really hated on me quite badly. And it still goes on today, you know, which I find unfair. I mean, my only crime was bringing that band out of the bingo halls and the working men's clubs and bringing them to the front, you know what I mean? And as far as the song goes, a lot of the songs, it was all me, you know. The ballad, for instance, I mean, he redid it. It was great what he did, don't get me wrong. He redid it recently with a girl singing it as a tribute to Pepsi, the boy, you know. Mm-hmm. And that song, it's nothing to do, it's about a girl I knew, you know. It's basically a personal song that I wrote about that. And I don't get all this, you know, I don't get all this tribute stuff. And people are online saying, oh, beautiful song, it's well written, and Jay, lovely song. And I'm thinking, but he didn't even have much to do with that song. I mean, all the keyboards and everything are Tim Lewis, the piano parts on there. And it kind of, I don't want to sound bitter, but it kind of annoys me even to this day that I don't get a lot of credit for what I did. I don't get a lot of credit at all, you know. I mean, to be honest with you, when I first joined the band, they just didn't have any songs. And it got to the point where I just wanted to go and leave. So I auditioned for a band called Tokyo Blade. Mm-hmm. And I didn't get the job. I was down to the last 2, but for some reason, it didn't work out. And I really wanted that job. So I had to go back cap in hand to Tigertailz. And basically what I said is, we need some songs now if we're going to do it properly. And that's where the EP came. I think one of the first proper songs we wrote was Living Without You, you know. Which is, nobody's ever said it, but it's the chorus is very REO Speedwagon. I don't know if you know the album 9 Lives.
No, I never been big into REO, no.
Well, Yeah, I was really into them in the 70s, you know, and they had a song called Back on the Road Again. And that melody is very, very similar to that. And that's where it came from, you know. It didn't come from the pen of J. Pepper, let's put it that way.
So when it comes to your exit of the band, did you agree with what was said on the podcast, or do you have a different side to it?
Oh, that I was fighting with journalists and getting in a lot of scrapes.
Yeah, that's what was said. Yes.
Yeah. No, that's bollocks. Most of it's bollocks, you know. Some of it's true. I mean, I upset some journalists. The one I vividly remember is we were all down the marquee, the four of us, Tigertailz, and they were egging me on to go and blow smoke in this guy's face. So I got a big cigar and blew smoke in his face because he'd given us an unfavourable review. And I never punched any journalists. That's a lie. Absolute lie. You know, I maybe upset a few of them because I was defending the band most of the time, you know, and they were backing me up on it. It was almost like they were setting me up to fall, like a scapegoat, you know. And the management and the record company, Music for Nations, the guy Martin Hooker, actually, he just died recently. The guy, the head of the company, he absolutely hated me. He had me in the office all the time, saying this has got to stop, that's got to stop. And it's like I said, but we're getting publicity, we're selling records out of it, you know. And I did get in some scrapes, but not with journalists. No, I may well have upset a few of them from what I said, but I absolutely did not punch any journalists. I can state that categorically.
When was the last time you talked with Jay?
The last time I spoke to him on the phone was when the name business was going on, because we had all that stuff with the name. We went out and started using it. They weren't doing anything. And Ace told me, I mean, I didn't speak to Jay until the end of the whole situation before it went to court and stuff. But Ace told me, he said, we can use the name, they're not doing anything. Mick Jay is not worried about it. So we carried on using it. And then all of a sudden, this whole shitstorm blew up about the name, you know. And funny enough, it was me and Ace using the name, but I got scapegoated once again for trying to steal the name of the band I had no rights to. Ace got away scot-free, as he always did. People were saying, oh, he had bad advice from me and stuff. There was no advice. We went into it with our eyes open together.
Where's he now?
Ace is... I think he lives in Ohio now. I'm not sure whereabouts, but yeah, he lives in the state of Ohio. I fell out with Ace a long time about his book and stuff, but I've recently started talking to him. But yeah, I also I've got the emails here. I also emailed Mick. I keep calling him Mick, J. Pepper. I emailed Mick and I said, did you want to get together for a one-off gig at a place called I forget the place now. The Borderline, in London. It's a small club where bands used to do showcases and things. I said, how about getting us together? This will be me, Ace on drums, Mick on guitar, Jay on guitar, and Tim Hooker. You know, we'd do a set of half Young and Crazy, half Berserk. We'd do it all for charity, you know, because obviously the boy had died, and I said we'd do half for his cancer charity and half for diabetic charity, which I'm obviously a type 1 diabetic. Mm-hmm. And he just flat out said no. So I have tried over the years, but that was the last thing for me. I thought, you know, after all these years, if you can't put your differences aside for a one-off charity show, then there's no point. There's no point to keep asking. You can only ask a person a certain amount of times before you get mugged off, you know.
So you're on board with reuniting with Jay if he was on board with it?
I was, yes. I was for that. It would just be a one-off, you know. Mm-hmm. We'd hardly have to speak to each other, but no, he wasn't. He just wasn't interested. I think he said to me some ridiculous thing about I don't want to play in England ever again, and that's all he's done ever since, which was, you know, basically it's a load of bullshit, you know what I mean? But yeah, I would have done it, absolutely, you know. It's impossible now because obviously the boy sadly died, so none of that can happen. But yeah, we actually talked about it, and Ace is good friends with Kim, and he spoke about it, and I've seen him on Twitter going on about it. We did try, yeah, we did try, but Jay was he just shut the door on that straight away. He was too busy re-recording the Shoot to Kill EP, which was very creepy. I don't know if you've seen the cover to that.
I don't know if I had... No.
No, I mean, it doesn't matter what I say. They just think I'm bitter, but it's quite bad, actually. I mean, I read somebody online that had posted something underneath it, and he kind of summed it up. It said something like, "God, this is horrific. It's like dressing your new girlfriend up as your deceased ex-wife, you know, because everybody's dressed in the same." Everybody's dressed in the same gear, trying to look like we all did back in the day with the new members. And it was kind of creepy, I thought. I'd never known any band do that before, but, you know, he has his own way of doing stuff, and that's up to him, you know?
Right.
But, yeah, he won't give me any credit, not for nothing, you know? It's like that podcast you're talking about, when he said I wrote some of the melodies. I mean, it's kind of like, yeah, he just did a bit of this, a bit of that. It's not true. It isn't true, you know? I walked away from that band with not a penny in my pocket. You know, they all carried on doing what they were doing, earning money, making records. I was left with, you know, not a pot to piss in, really. So I don't get all the hatred. I really don't get it, you know. And it's from people around that band, and one of the guys is now the drummer in the band, you know. I've seen him, and people have alerted me to things he said online about me. I don't even know the guy, you know what I mean?
So you're out of the band, what year? About 88, 89? When are you out?
Yeah, the last tour I did was to promote Young and Crazy. I call it the what did I used to call it? I had a name for the tour. It was like the lonely tour, you know. It was like me and those three.
Okay.
It was some of the nights were just appalling. It was like being on stage with three guys we were like a gang, you know, when we first formed and did all the stuff. But it was like being on stage with myself and just three other guys stood behind me, and there was no interaction. There was nothing. It was quite bad, actually, but, you know, I carried on and did the tour, not to let anybody down, but the last tour I did was it was February 88, because one of the shows was on my birthday in February.
Okay.
And, yeah, that was it. That was it. The last tour I ever did, I think. The last show I ever did with them was in a place in England called Lowestoft. And that was that. After that, they, you know, they'd obviously made their minds up before that. I'm not privy to what went on, and I can only tell you what Ace told me, so it's third hand. You know what I mean? So I'm really not privy to it. There's a lot of stories are going around why it happened, what, you know, this and that. And basically Mick said, didn't he, I got in a lot of scrapes and I'd upset loads of journalists. Well, yeah, whatever. They started calling themselves the wildest band on the planet and maniacs, and they got rid of me because I was rock and roll 24/7, they said. I mean, it's all hypocritical, you know. But yeah, they obviously we demoed 4 songs which was supposed to be a single off of Young and Crazy to bring out as a single, and we demoed 4 songs. The main song was going to be "I Want You to Want Me" by Cheap Trick.
Okay.
And I remember the conversation in the record company that the guy who ran the record company, he said, well, you know, why would you do that song? That'll never be a hit. And I just thought, man, are you insane? I mean, that was a hit in the 70s. It was a massive hit. And a glam band doing "I Want You to Want Me," does that make sense or not?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, look at all the bands that did cover. Look at Quiet Riot. Well, like we said, Quiet Riot. Huge hits with the Slade cover.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, you know. And, yeah, we were put in a tiny little studio. We rushed in there and did this demo, which was, you know, only to see what the song sounded like. And apparently, like I say, I wasn't privy to it because I was out of the band. Apparently, when he heard the demos, this Cheap Trick demo, Cheap Trick cover and the other songs on there, he just said it was a load of rubbish and basically they needed to get rid of me. So that was that, yeah.
So you're out of the band and the guys get Kim Hooker and they do Berserk. What are your thoughts on Berserk?
Well, before that, they re-recorded "Living Without You," didn't they?
They did the single.
They
You're
put it
right.
out as a single, which was a big slap in the face to me, you know.
Okay, yeah.
I guess that's why they did it. I don't, just to show that oh, we got a new singer, we've done a great version of this and great that. What they didn't say is that probably the recording and the single budget was probably bigger than the whole of the Young and Crazy album, you know, which was about $5 to $7 grand for a whole album. But they went on and they got. That's another ironic thing. Kim Hooker was a quite a good friend of mine when I lived in Cardiff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Before he was in a band called Rankelson at the time. But yeah, I used to hang about with him quite a lot.
So, what'd you think of Berserk?
Sorry.
I'm going to get this out of you.
You're going to put me on the spot to sound like a bit of sod now, aren't you? But like I said to you, I only ever heard it, the full album, when I rejoined with Ace in 2003, and he made me sit down and listen to it. And he said the same thing. What do you think? So apart from the single Love Bomb Baby, I didn't know any of that record. So when I listened to it in 2003, it's a bit different to listening to it when it came out, which was 89, 90, I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I really liked Love Overload, which is, you know, it's lifted from the Out of the Cellar Rat album, but I like the song, you know, and I like those harder edge songs, but some of it on there I just thought was pretty weak, you know what I mean? It was just overproduced at the time, and it cost a shed load of money, you know, and I just thought, I wish we'd have had that budget when we did Young and Crazy, you know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, I don't know what to say about it without sounding bitter, you know. I listened to it, I just thought, yeah, it's okay. Like I say, I did like the song Love Overload, I have to be honest.
Yeah, it's one of those ones, and for me, it sounded drastically different because you have a different singer, and sometimes that's a little hard to digest, but over time, you know, I love that album too. I think there's a lot of great songs, and speaking of, it's funny, when I talked with Jay, and it almost seems like, even though you guys have differences, I feel like you guys are a lot alike in what you like for music, because he likes the harder edge songs, right? And you seem to like that too.
Yep.
Where me, I like the more pop, glammy type songs, right? So there's a song on there, it was the one, I think it's called Twist and Shake, and it's just like your typical pop glam song, and he didn't think much of that song. And the two songs that you have that are of that same style are Cat on a Hot Tin Roof and Talk of the Town. I just dig those kind of songs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I am kind of the same as him, you know. We always wanted to go harder, always. Harder edged sound. And that's what we were all about. And they kind of took a step backward for me on that record. But I think you can tell the songs that Jay wrote that have got that harder edged. And getting back to Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, I wrote that that was the first, it was an EP we did when I got my band together, and basically that was off the back of Tigertailz, so it was kind of a Cat on a Hot Tin Roof could have been a Tigertailz song, let's put it that way.
Yeah. And you know what's funny is I talk about, sometimes, you know, you probably see this on your YouTube videos, people like to comment and talk shit, right, on your videos. So somebody had made a comment that, like, oh, you know, Jay doesn't know what he's talking about in the interview. He hardly knows what he's talking about. I got to say, in my defense, and anybody from America will know this, getting information on Tigertailz was very minimal, right? The albums came out, that was it. There was no press. So when you talk about, like, you had an EP, I didn't come out here. I didn't know about it. You know what I mean? Even with the single, when they redid your song there, when Kim Hooker came in the band, that didn't come out here. I didn't find that till later on YouTube. So for us USA Tigertailz fans, in our defense, in pre-internet, there was nothing. Yeah,
it's weird because you say that, and I think I don't know what happened after Young and Crazy, but Young and Crazy came out on Relativity Combat in the States. And apparently it was pushed quite hard over there. And the Berserk album, as far as I'm aware, came out only as an import, as did probably the singles, as did my single, you know. So, yeah, I kind of understand where you're coming from there.
Yeah, and I told Jay this. I'll tell you, I was a kid. I think I was 11 years old when that album came out. And I just bought that. I bought it based on the cover, because there was no video for that. There was no video in America for that album. So I bought it. I said, oh, man, these guys look cool. They look like Poison and Motley Crue. I'm going to buy this. And obviously, you sounded a lot different. Like I said, you were heavier. You had a different vibe, and I fell in love with it right away. But like I said, after that, there really wasn't much of Tigertailz in America.
No, I don't know why. I don't know what happened with the second record. Obviously, I wasn't on it, so I couldn't tell you. But it didn't seem to come out in the places that Young and Crazy came out. I don't know if that was to do with the record company. I don't know if it was to do with maybe Relativity didn't distribute that record. I don't know. I thought that would have been worldwide as well, But like I say, Jay would be able to tell you all that story. I have no idea. Just what Ace has told me, and he never really explained to me why that happened.
Yeah, and you got to figure, we're getting to a tough time. 1990 to 1991, all the hair metal and glam rock was on its way out. So even if it did get here, it probably couldn't make an impact based on what was going on here. So. Yeah,
I don't understand. I mean, hypothetically, I'm saying, if I was still in the band, we'd have done another record in '88.
Right?
Because like I say, we'd recorded Young and Crazy in '86, '87. Well, probably '86, the first version of it. So by the time it came out, those songs were old,
Right.
So we'd already started writing new songs, me and Mick, Jay, and I don't know why it took them so long. I have no idea. And by the time it came out, it was almost over. That scene was almost dead in the water.
Yeah, and what's funny is when you probably have done this too. If you look at some of your favorite bands, or even a band that you're in, a lot of it's based on a timeline, right? For all of us today in 2020, we can look back and say, man, if Tigertailz would have did an album in '89 with you, right, or whatever, even if they would have done an album a couple years earlier, it could have been huge. You know what I mean? And it's always hindsight is 2020, and here we are in 2020. But I do that all the time. I'll look at bands' careers and I'll say, man, if they just could have did that album a year earlier before like grunge hit or whatever, it could have been a totally different outcome. Total different.
Yeah. I mean, like you say, it has a time frame on it. It has a certain time frame. If we could all see that, hindsight would be great. But I think most of us thought it would probably last forever at the time.
Yeah.
We couldn't see what was around the corner. But by the time grunge came in, I think it needed a clear out because there was some awful bands getting on some major labels. And it's the same with everything. Once it's oversaturized, it just starts getting watered down and yeah, some of those bands, there was some, don't get me wrong, there was some good records, but there was some awful bands around as well.
I believe, yeah. So now for the U.S., have you played in the U.S. with Tigertailz or without Tigertailz? Have you ever played the U.S.?
No, I only played in the U.S. when I was in a cover band with Ace in about '85. But that was the only time I ever played there. I don't know the story behind why we didn't go to America, but basically, when Young and Crazy was released, there was talk of going to the States. There was talk of touring out there, but the management said we can't go out there because he'll get shot, meaning me. So I even got the blame for that.
So out of U.S. bands, what were some of the glam bands that came out in the '80s that you thought were decent?
Some of the glam bands in the '80s.
Yeah, who'd you think was good?
I don't know if you could call them glam. They're hair metal, I suppose. They've got that moniker on them. But I always thought Jamie Lane was head and shoulders above everybody in the songwriting department. The songs were great, were killer. And I saw Warrant over here at the Astoria in London. I think they just brought Cherry Pie out. I can't remember what year it was. But they were absolutely brilliant. They were great live. I'd seen them before they got signed when I was out in LA for a month, and we went to the Whiskey, and there was quite a few bands that had just been signed, and they were playing like a showcase. There was Warrant, LA Guns, The Moles. I forget the other name of the other band, but there was this little showcase going on, and I just thought, oh, Warrant, they don't sound great, but LA Guns sounded great to me. And when the albums came out, it was like a role reversal, I just thought Jamie Lane was, for that era, he was the man. Absolutely, he was the man.
I agree with you 100%. It's funny as time goes on, like certain albums grow on you and other ones you don't, you just don't get it. And when I listen to that Warrant debut album, every single song is great. His voice is great. I mean, it's just an amazing album. Amazing.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And when you get to the second album, Take Off Cherry Pie, I don't think he even like that.
No.
Uncle Tom's Cabin is just superb,
Big time.
As is the songwriting on the second album.
So on Spotify, you've got an album, and this is basically like some of your EP stuff and your demo stuff. Why don't you tell everybody about that album?
Yeah, it came out, it was called Damned If I Do, Damned If I Don't when we released it. It's just basically a bunch of demos, as you say, with the EP tacked onto the end of it. And it was stuff I did through the years. There's actually a couple of Tigertailz songs on there. I think Now You're On Your Own is on there. In fact, I know it is. And I think there's a song called Take It to the Limit on there as well, which was a Tigertailz demo before I got fired, And the other songs is the three from the EP, the Cat Knocked in Roof, Kick That Habit, and Talk to the Town, which Scott Gorham produced. And the rest are demos through the years up to the point where I released it. There's a couple of Crash KO songs on there as well, which we did in about 82, 83, which to this day I really like. That band was cursed as well. But it's basically a bunch of demos put on a record to make up the 10 or so tracks on there. But we took it in the studio and we got it mastered by a guy in Islington in London. And I think it came out well. It's not a record per se as I went in and recorded it all in one go. It's like I say, it's over the years. And it was just tapes laying about, and I thought, I might as well use them, People were asking if I had this, if I had that, and the EP never came out on CD, so we put it all together and released it on the album Damned If I Do, Damned If I Don't. And then a guy in Sweden wanted to re-release it, so he renamed it Glam Damnation. He put a bonus track on there, and then he put it out. But, it's a mixture of songs. I mean, you can, if you listen to it, you can tell the decades are changing. There's some Aussie-type songs on there, and there's also some glam stuff,
Yeah, it's got some great stuff on there. And then in 2008, you put out My Private Hell. That one is great. I mean, your voice sounds great, and I can hear like a little bit of a European metal vibe in that one. Is that true, or you believe that?
Yeah, because I recorded that in Sweden with a guy called Chris Laney and another guy called Anders Ringman, and it was basically them doing the music and me writing some of the lyrics on that and melodies and bits and bobs. And I went out there, and it was the first time I'd ever done a record where somebody took the time with me. You know what I'm saying? Like, we were warming up in the studio. It was all alien to me, with Tigertailz, I just went in, ripped my voice out, and left. With this, we took the time over it, and really, really went to town on it. And I think I'm really proud of that record to this day. There's some great songs on there, There really is some good songs on that. But it was, as you say, it sounds European, probably because it is.
Well, see, I'm not crazy. Any plans to do another solo album?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, they're talking about it this year. I've been talking to a guy about it this year, and we're getting some stuff together. I did, believe it or people will laugh when you hear this, I did 2 AOR tracks about a year and a half ago that are coming out on an album called Santa Ana Winds this year. And it's basically, I think the songs were written by Van Morrison's ex-wife, but they're really great songs. And I went, the guy who was putting it together said, did you fancy singing on 2 songs, AOR songs? And my jaw hit the floor a bit, and I thought, well, it's way out of my comfort zone, and it's something I'll never ever do again. So I went in and put down 2 tracks, and they've come out really well. They really have. We're quite chuffed with it, I'm no Steve Perry, of course, but my voice kind of suits. They're a harder edged AOR, so my voice kind of suits the 2 tunes that I've done. So hopefully that's out in a couple of months. It's all being put together as we speak. So. But yeah, I've got some songs for another record, and health permitting, as I've told you, it's maybe I'll get to finish that all off this year.
Oh, that sounds awesome. So, closing up, what do you want to tell your fans? What do you want to say to the fans out there?
Thanks for all the support over the years. You know, there's been some great times, there's been some bad times, but a lot of people have stuck with me, and it's just nice to know, even talking to you now, that album made an impact. Young and Crazy made an impact on you when you listen to it. I mean, who'd have thought, 33, 35 years, whatever it is later, I'd be sat on the phone talking about that record. I wouldn't have dreamed that when we wrote the songs, Wouldn't have dreamed it at all. But, yeah, it just thanks for all the support. And, hopefully, if I do a new record this year, they'll go out and listen to it and buy it.
That's great. Well, Steevi, thanks so much for the time today, man. I really enjoyed chatting with you. A lot of great Tigertailz insight. So, no, this was great, man. Really appreciate it.
Oh, no, thank you, Mike. Really, really appreciate you taking the time to bother to talk to me, man. It's great, And it's been a nice call actually, walking down Mary Lane. Some of it's been a bit of a car crash, but I've got some good memories about it,
Well, seeing that Steevi and I both have the gift of gab, I'm surprised we kept this interview under an hour. But we got a lot of great Tigertailz information. Hope you enjoyed it. Rock on!